Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of OTT.X Webinars, where we bring you thought-provoking insights from industry-leading executives, experts, and innovators from all sectors of the OTT, CTV, and streaming space. My name is Jose Rodriguez, and on behalf of the OTT.X team, thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're delighted to be joined by OTT.X President and CEO, Hollie Choi, and nScreenMedia's Founder and Chief Analyst, Colin Dixon, for a discussion on the biggest challenges facing the OTT, CTV, and streaming ecosystems today. As we are well aware, the streaming industry is experiencing unprecedented transformation from AI-driven monetization and operational strategies to fragmented advertising ecosystems and inconsistent metadata standards. Today, we will learn more about these key challenges and how OTT.X aims to spearhead an industry-wide collaborative effort to solve these issues, beginning with an upcoming executive roundtable discussions on March 28th. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Colin and Hollie. Colin, Hollie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jose.
Thanks, Jose.
And I am delighted to be speaking with Hollie Choi. And Hollie, I think this could be the first time that some of the people have actually seen you since you've become president of OTT.X.
This is true.
So we're going to try and do a couple of things this morning. One is we definitely want to talk about some of these issues that are going to be the subject of the OTT.X member discussions on Friday, February 28th. That's coming up real soon, a couple of weeks. Yeah, but 10 days, in fact, 10 days. So that's going to be going on then. But before we do that, let's get to know you, Hollie, a little bit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know, for example, that you've got two hats, right? You're also head of IDA.
Yeah, yes, I've been also leading the IDA organization for about 3.5 years. So I continue doing that, and I sort of split time between the two organizations. They, both organizations are pretty well established, and they're mostly on the rails. They just need, guidance and leadership, and, hopefully I'm improving things. You can ask Jose.
So before we actually, IDA is kind of interesting, right? The Entertainment Identifier Registry. Tell us just a spot about IDA. And the reason I'm asking you this is because I think it's not irrelevant to our conversation today. There's at least a couple of items that we're going to talk about where I think IDA has quite a lot of relevancy. So tell us what IDA is.
Certainly. Yeah, IDA is, as you said, it's the Entertainment ID Registry. So what we do, if you think about the book publishing world, there's an ISBN, right? That's that number on the back of every book, and it has a barcode that's associated with it. And if you look up that ID, you will get some factual information about the book, right? It'll tell you what the title was, who the author is, the publication date, who's the publisher, right? Those kinds of things. Which edition it is, right? So IDA seeks to do the same thing for movies and television and other entertainment content. We primarily focus on commercial content and commercial distribution of content. So the idea is we issue an identifier to every, let's say, movie, right? So we have a movie. There could be multiple edits of that movie. There's a director's cut, and there's a theatrical edit. There's one for television. There's maybe one that goes on airlines. So we make sure that each individual edition or rendition of the content has an identifier that then can tie back to the top level title. Our primary I guess all of our members are part of the entertainment industry, and our board of directors are all of the biggest names in entertainment. So it's, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Disney, Sinclair Broadcast. We have Google, Amazon, you name it, right? Like, so all of the big folks are leading our board of directors, and we have some vendors as well. So we have Xperia and Gracenote are also members of our board of directors. So they sort of set they guide the organization and have been for 15 years. So it's a pretty well established organization and pretty well accepted in the industry as sort of an industry standard for the identifier, for the identification of content.
And that description of IDA and the way IDA works, I think, is a great justification for why you're probably the perfect person to run OTT.X, right? It's a kind of
Yeah.
similar skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. The two organizations are very similar in structure. So both are a nonprofit organization, but they are not a charity organization. It's a 501c6, which is a business association nonprofit. So it basically means that I can put competitors into a room together, and as long as they're not doing any kind of nefarious anti-competitive behavior, they're allowed to work together on industry objectives that affect everybody.
Very good. And you've been a couple of other places as well, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, if you have questions for Hollie, or you have questions, questions for me, or questions about the topics that we're going to talk about, please put them in the Q&A window. Oh, and do introduce yourself on the chat. Say hi to your fellow participants and put your contact details up there.
Yeah. So yeah, before I was at IDER, I was at Disney, and prior to that, I was at 20th Century Fox for quite a long time. And my previous life before entertainment, I would say mostly mortgage banking, but I'm a technologist. I started a long time ago in technology career. Mostly initially, I started doing it's weird because it all kind of comes around full circle, but I was a database administrator in my early lifetime, so in my early tech days. And then yeah, when I was at 20th Century Fox, I supported the backlot. I did, and not all at once, but I supported the backlot operations. So I know the ins and outs of how a studio functions literally on the ground, like and then, moved into international theatrical post-production. So I understand localization and, that kind of stuff. Then I did digital asset management, IP management systems. I was there for a long time, so I got to move around quite a bit.
So it sounds like content workflows are your bread and butter.
Absolutely. Yeah, we sort of joke that I have a weird talent for, if you talk to me about your workflow, I can tell you where all of the broken parts are really quickly. I can map it out in like an hour and then show you, like, here's where it falls off a cliff. So it's one of my weird skill sets, is being able to identify workflows.
You're the workflow whisperer.
I am. I also say, because the way that we did everything at 20th Century Fox, Fox was, it's a unique environment because they expect you to sort of be entrepreneurial, and you kind of have to make your own career there, right? So if I wanted to advance, that wasn't there weren't like, here's a position that we created, you just made your own, right? So you go around and find problems to solve and then they become your problem to own. So it was pretty easy to collect problems at Fox. And then integrations were huge because they never wanted to pay for inefficient workflows, right? So we'd have these workflow problems, we'd work out the workflow problem and then design the system around a clean workflow. So I also sort of joke that I'm the integration queen, which works well at IDER also because it's integrating with 90 companies to bring all of their data into one place. So it's pretty useful skill set.
Yeah, and entirely appropriate to help things out in the OTT world as well, which brings us to our member discussions, which are taking place on March 28th. So there were three main topics, three headings that we're really going to be focusing on at that session. And I thought it might be good for us to spend a few minutes talking about each. And this is definitely where, if you have questions, this is a great time to ask those questions, and I'll pepper Hollie with them at the end. So I suppose it was inevitable that AI would be one of those. It is the issue, the single most popular issue in the last 2 years at conferences. I have not been able to go through a single discussion, single panel, single presentation without questions and issues around it.
Sure.
So talk to us a little bit about how you see this playing out, what you see are some of the challenges that we're dealing with, and what we're going to be talking about on the 28th.
Sure. So I think, as I talk to and get to know the OTT.X member companies and their representatives, this is obviously top of mind for everybody. And yeah, I think it's not a conference unless somebody says AI, right? You have to say it before it becomes like an official conference. So, but yeah, every time I talk to an OTT.X member, as I'm getting to know the community, this comes up, and it's always a question of, I feel like the presentations I have seen at conferences over the past few years around this are, how can I use it in creative, right? Like if I'm doing creative work, how can I use AI to make that easier for creators? But my question has always been, how do I use it to make your business better, right? How do we use it in the business function? And so that's what that's our focus for this roundtable, is bringing folks together that have been using it to improve data quality, or, data completeness, or things of those, that kind of nature. Also, how else are people using it in more of a business creative way, right? How can I use it to improve the business? I was talking to one of our members, and I think I saw him on the participant list, but he's been doing a lot of work with this, and he's told me, if you're not using AI, it's sort of malpractice on your part, right? Because you could be doing things to improve your business with it, and if you're not being efficient with it, then you're missing out.
Yeah, indeed. And I think one of the things that's really exciting now is, I think a lot of companies have head of data sciences, and their jobs are being absolutely revolutionized by AI. It's allowing them to do things that they simply couldn't do before. So there's a lot of glossy stuff out front. There's sort of, okay, we can do recommendations and we can do
Right.
targeting and stuff like that. But there's a lot of other stuff that sort of takes place in the back office as well, right?
Absolutely. And I think, for me, especially looking at IDER and kind of how folks are using IDER is used as sort of a source for a lot of these, the AI engines, right? Because the data quality has become a real situation for everybody, mainly because if you look at sort of streaming services, a company puts their name on their streaming service, right? So if the metadata doesn't look good, or it's incorrect, or there's something wrong with it, people will zero in on that and think this company doesn't have their stuff together, right? Like these guys are messy. And so you definitely want to see clean metadata on these services, because you put your name on it. It's part of your brand now. So if your metadata is garbage, everybody's going to look at you like you don't know what you're doing, even if your content is phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. I know you've been involved with metadata for a lot of your career.
Yeah.
I've been very focused on metadata for a lot of mine as well, as an analyst and in products. And I can't think, when I think about foundational pieces for the entertainment industry, this is honestly, it's one of the first things that always comes to mind. I see a lot of companies investing their energy in using AI to enhance metadata in ways that we just couldn't conceive of even just 5 years ago.
Sure.
Capturing things like mood and intangible
Sentiment.
intangible things like
Yeah.
emotion, um, and identifying, just flat out identifying all the objects in a scene and throughout a scene. So you end up with a time track, and that obviously opens up a whole host of possibilities for monetization going forward, right?
Absolutely. And when you're dealing with things like content warnings in a global economy, right? If you're distributing something in Japan, the requirements for what content warnings need to be on it are going to be very different than what the UK expects, right? So and what the US expects. So being able to have an AI identify those things, tell you where in the content it is, so you can do compliance editing for those localized markets, it's huge. Like, it's going to save you an immeasurable amount of time, and it saves tons of time and money, right? Because time is money. So you don't have to have as many eyes on the content the way that you would have otherwise, right? So yeah, it's the time savings for things like identifying the content and doing the content warnings for you, or at least drawing your attention to go check and see, is there smoking in this scene, or is there just a puff of smoke, right? Like, was it really something that needs to happen or not, right? But I think it reduces the amount of time and the amount of eyes that you need to have on it.
Right. So it sounds like the subjects of this discussion that's going to take place on the 28th are really focused on things that you can do today.
Yeah.
That can help boost revenue, reduce costs, reduce or increase return on investment. Those are the real areas that you're planning on focusing on, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it is a working group though, so who knows where they're going to go once they get in the room together, right? So that's sort of our idea of where we think the conversation will go. But with all of these groups, the plan is to not have this be the last of this conversation, right? The idea would be that as we go forward, this now becomes the beginnings of a working group that looks for ways to make these things more efficient in the industry for each other, and we don't want it to end there. It's just sort of the beginning. Yeah.
And I love Craig Seidel's comment. He just said a great example is AI for compliance.
Yeah.
That he was sort of inferring that from a couple of your examples. So.
Absolutely, there are really great tools out there, vendors that are doing this today, and it works great. So I've seen really impressive examples of this kind of stuff going on today, and there are multiple groups that are doing it really well.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm just in the middle of setting up all my meetings, my briefings for NAB, which is coming up in 3 weeks, and I am happy to say that it feels to me like the hype has cooled, and the briefings I'm being asked to now that involve specifically AI seem much more pragmatic and practical. So that's something I think to cheer us all. Now, the next topic that we're talking about at that on the 28th is advertising challenges. I just saw some new data from World yesterday that shows that ad fill rates are not great. They had a brief respite for CTV at least during the Olympics, during the election. What am I talking about? The election, where they actually did go up to well above average for the year. But fill rates are not great this year. They're down from last year and the previous year. So that's certainly one of the things that we're going to be talking about, right? CPM volatility, but measurement is going to be a critical topic, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the fill rates are sort of a symptom of a broader issue, and that's sort of how we're hearing it from members, is that they see that, and that's obviously a problem because that's how you make money, right? And everybody needs to make money to kind of be able to continue running their business. So if you sort of dig a little bit under the surface and try to figure out why is that, right? OTT.X had the X fronts, right? So we've had those the last couple of years, and everybody was really excited because it was an opportunity to get in front of buyers and to get in front of the advertisers. And there was some feedback that that's all fine, but what happens then is everybody's doing it a little differently, right? So then measurement becomes really difficult, because if you don't have a standard way of putting together your slate, right, like then it's kind of hard to do the measurement later, right? So this conversation is really sort of a deep dive into what are all of those challenges, right? We get that there's probably a lot of the folks have told us the platforms have told us, well, we can't do measurement very well. So then the advertisers just don't want to put their money here, right? They don't want to put their content here because they have no way to measure whether or not what they did was, was actually beneficial. And being able to do measurement means we all kind of have to be doing everything in a standard way. So it really kind of leads back to a standards conversation, but then also what else is here that we don't necessarily know about, right? Again, this is another one of those, we really expect this to be an ongoing conversation even after we close up shop that day. But we know just from talking to everybody that these are some of the really key challenges are we can't do measurement because we're not doing everything in a standard way. And nobody works in a vacuum. Everybody needs to be doing things similarly enough that you can actually work together. But then also, being able to get the right advertisers with the right platforms, right? I think that's sort of another challenge. So it's going to be, I think this one's going to be a really interesting conversation because it seems very nuanced, and I think there's a lot there to unpack. So.
Yeah, certainly, there certainly is, and this is an area that's also fraught with a little bit of politics as well, right?
Sure.
There's the issue that some platforms don't want to reveal the data to the providers. I've heard a lot of fast channel providers complaining bitterly that they're not really getting enough information to be able to run their channels and run their business very efficiently. But this fragmentation issue is, I think, probably the most crippling problem of all. It is incredibly difficult for advertisers and content providers, for that matter, to get unified view of how their campaigns and how their content is doing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's common across everybody that we talk to, right? It's the same complaint. The advertisers are complaining that they can't get the information, and the platforms are saying they can't produce the information, or if they do, like you said, some of them don't really want to share it. So I think there's sort of also a question of, have we agreed upon what the key performance indicators are here? Like, what are our KPIs? And does everybody agree that those are the KPIs? And if some folks don't agree, it might be at their peril, right? Because if I can't get what I think I need as the advertiser back in terms of measurement data, will I just choose to put my content somewhere else?
Yeah. Will multi-currency be part of that conversation, do you think?
I think it will have to be, yeah, because again, everybody sort of works in this global ecosystem nowadays. So
yeah, I've heard some people almost casting wistfully back to the days of Nielsen, where you had one voice, one authority.
yeah.
Struck me as strange when I hear that, because of course that was a sampled world and we can absolutely measure now. So we should be in a better position, but we're still struggling to get that unified measurement. I mean, look, it's not easy, right? Because not only we're talking about a multi-platform world, so whether you're in the FAST market or you're in the AVOD market, or you're just in the plain old SVOD market, you're on multiple different TV OSs. So there's that sort of plane, and then of course you're advertising to different screens, to different people. Some of those screens are shared, some of them are individual. This is a very, very complicated space.
Absolutely. I think if you look across sort of how people consume content, it's very strangely, my child is 11. She watches YouTube exclusively. If we try to get her to watch a movie on the big shared screen in the house, she is uninterested. And if we force her, we're like, no, you're going to sit here and watch this movie with us. About 30, 45 minutes in, she looks around and goes, can I leave now? I need to be on YouTube again, right? So being able to, and then she will complain to me, why am I getting ads about the election? I can't vote. Right. It's those kinds of being able to direct the right ads to the right people is also really complicated. So I think there's a lot of different elements to this. And I do think that I think that there are answers out there. I think we just need to get all the right people involved in the conversation. So
Yeah, and that's what that's going to be about on the 28th. Absolutely.
absolutely.
The last major issue is something, again, very near and dear to my heart. I know it's also very dear to your heart, and that's CPG, metadata, and SCTE. So, um, talk about some of the issues that you think are going to be prevalent on that in that particular discussion.
Yeah, I think it's been a conversation that's been happening in, kind of in pockets around the industry for a really long time. And we have sort of standards and we have things that, tell us other elements of the industry. But this is one of those focus points that it just hasn't been fleshed out yet. And it's something that I think there are, again, it's a lot of different nuances, and especially with the landscape being as complicated as it is, right? It's no longer just a broadcast situation. We have all of these other ways that we distribute content. And again, it's not always being done in a standard way, right? There isn't really a standard here. So this is meant to really sort of get folks together, figure out what should that standard be. And we're really trying to curate this conversation a lot. We're really going out and trying to find the right people to be in this group, because we think that it is an industry-wide conversation. And it's something that, we really want to make sure that we have voices from, Movie Labs and from SMPTE, and we want, folks from the bigger platforms and the smaller platforms. And so we're bringing everybody together to try to figure out across all of the different platforms, how should this be being done? And can we come together on something kind of more standard? So I think again, this one's really, really complicated, because I think this is our most technical conversation. But I think there are solutions here. It's just a matter of getting the right people involved in the discussion and coming to an agreement on how we should be going about this.
Yeah, I've just been in the middle of I've just finished up a project where I was comparing video platforms. And one of the things that I had heard from providers was that metadata was incredibly difficult, because all of the different platforms support different formats.
Sure.
And I talked to one particular content provider, and they told me if they had known how difficult it would be for them to distribute all of their content through all of these platforms, they might not have got started in the first place.
Wow.
It's absorbed so much engineering time. There are tons of discontinuities in our industry that I feel standards can really help iron out. And this is a great place to start, I think, with metadata.
I mean, the good thing about a standard, right? Like, let's say that we come to an agreement, and obviously it's not going to happen in one day, and it's not going to happen in this one conversation. But, if you have, I was having a conversation yesterday with one of the OTT.X members about the different ways that you're expected as a content distributor to distribute metadata, right? So if I'm sending it to any of the really big streaming platforms, they each have their own standard format, right? I want it with these fields in this order, with, these number of characters in each of these fields, right? Like they have a very specific format that they want it distributed to them. So you hand over content and you give them your metadata. Each one of them wants it slightly different, and there have been efforts to try to unify that, and it didn't go. It didn't actually go as well as I think people wanted it to. This was part of my job at 20th Century Fox, was to build the systems that would output those metadata outputs. And we sort of had the way that we did it, we basically said the big guys can have whatever they want and everyone else gets whatever we give them. But the problem is that there are multiple companies that are doing that same thing. So the thing that you may get as a smaller provider from one studio or one platform, you're going to get something completely different in a different format. So you're going to be the one navigating all of these different formats. So if I would say that if you can't make the bigger platforms do it the same way, because they've already built their systems around having it come in that way, maybe there's a way for the rest, right? Because it's something like, it's like an 80-20 rule, right? Like 80% of the content gets distributed to the top 20%, but then the other 80% of the distributors are doing the other 20% of the distribution. So if we can maybe get the little ones on a standard, that might be a place to start.
As a strategy, I think that's very sound. Getting the big guys to move is very difficult.
Yeah.
But the way you do it is by getting all the little guys together, agree on a standard,
Yeah.
and then develop a set of tools around that standard and surround the big guys.
Sure.
And eventually, if your standard really does simplify things, they'll adopt it.
Well, maybe.
It'll take a while. It'll take a while, but I really feel, well, at least I think you've got a shot. Now, talk to us a little bit about the EPG subject as well. That's a fascinating topic I spend a lot of time writing about, thinking about. What aspects are you hoping to cover there?
Well, I think a lot of it is, I don't know that we know all of the nuances or the issues there, right? So I'm really hoping to get a lot more insights into what are the struggles there. Yep. I mean, there are the obvious ones, right? Field lengths, character lengths. I know, you know, we have conversations a lot about, you know, synopsis, right? Like if I have a synopsis that shows up on the screen, like what is the standard there? There isn't one, right? If I want 100 characters or 200 characters or whatever, right? There are sort of these kind of top level known problems, but I'm really hoping to get more understanding in that session about what are the other things that are not just that obvious stuff, right? What else are we looking at that are causing problems here?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I can't believe we're still using that crappy old grid guide after all these years to navigate the 500 or 1,000 channels that are sat in fast services. It's kind of crazy. Hopefully we can come up with some new ideas. We're going to turn it over to you now if you have questions for Hollie or about the topics that we're talking about. I loved, Rebecca, I love your comment here. 2023 was the year of AI, 2024 was the year of AI disillusionment, and 2025 is the year of AI realism. I think you pretty much nailed it there, Rebecca. That's a great comment. So if you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A window and we'll take a look. Now, talk a little bit about the organization of the event on the 28th, Hollie. How's it going to work?
So great question. So we're meeting at the Fandango offices. And so there's sort of a central room that we're all going to kind of meet up in, and we'll do, you know, logistics. We'll kind of tease the, you know, the topics. So each of we have a different presenter for each room, and we're going to then split everybody into rooms. So if you're there for the AI conversation, you'll get kind of a quick 5-minute presentation about the AI conversation, what we're going to be talking about, where we're going to be meeting, those kinds of things. And then everybody will go off to their rooms, their individual rooms, and they'll be doing their work to, you know, basically the idea would be come up with what are the pillars of the problem, right? So these are the things that we think are the problem or make up the problem, and then decide amongst themselves which of those things do we think needs its own working group, or can an entire working group handle all of those things, right? And so I suspect that there will be little divided mini working groups within the major working groups, because these are big problems. These aren't something that, you know, you can kind of do one workshop and solve. Then as everybody sort of wraps up, we think there is overlap between these different topics. So then we're going to bring everybody back together. They're going to talk about what they talked about, right? So what are the outcomes from their conversation? And then if there is crossover, which we think that there will be, it gives everybody sort of a chance to then say, oh, we're also working on something that crosses over into what you guys are working on. So how can we also work together on those things? And then everybody will go through the next steps, and then we'll wrap it up. But there, we'll feed you at some point in the middle of the day there. But yeah, I think that's sort of the idea, is sort of bring everybody back together at the end, and then have a little, just a roundup of everything that everybody talked about and what the go forward plan is at that point.
So it sounds like the objective is to have a go forward plan, is to
Absolutely
set up working groups that can go off and actually begin to figure out what a solution to the individual problems that have been identified are, begin to figure out how they can be solved and addressed.
Absolutely. And I think that that's sort of how, how we plan to proceed with OTT.X in the future, is that this is a place that you come to network. It's a place you come to learn things, but it's also a place you come to be a part of the industry, folks that are helping to set the standards for the industry and solve the problems that are plaguing us all.
Yeah, indeed. So it sounds like it's going to be a great event. I hope people can show up. And so, Hollie, I think we're pretty much out of time here. I don't see anybody asking any questions, so hopefully they're just excited about showing up at the workshop and participating. I bet I hopefully will see Craig Seidel there. I know Craig's was involved in IDA when it was first.
He's still involved in IDER. I just talked to him this morning about IDER. Craig is actually one of our co-leads for one of the rooms, so he'll be working on the EPG metadata and SCUDdy standardization in a fragmented landscape room. He's going to be helping to lead that conversation. So you'll see Craig for sure.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I think we're just about done. Hollie, thank you so much for spending time with us and explaining it sounds like the expanding role of OTT.X.
It is. Yeah.
Great to hear.
Yeah, happy to do it. We're, our goal really is let's solve these things. So
very good. And I can't think of an organization that's better placed to begin to do that. So let's hope that we make some progress.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hollie.
I hope so too.
And we'll hand it back to you, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Hollie. Great discussion, guys. Great to learn about OTT.X newest Commander-in-Chief. And personally, in my short time working with Hollie, I'm very excited about the direction we're going. So looking forward to the upcoming roundtables. The roundtable discussions will be taking place on March 28th at the offices of Fandango in Los Angeles. This is meant to be a jumping off point for an industry-wide initiative to solve pain points and create best practices and standards. If you're a stakeholder currently involved in AI, advertising, or metadata in SCTE and EPG, and want to be part of the solution or betterment of these areas, we invite you to join one of these discussions, whether you're an OTT.X member or not. We really want this to be an industry-wide initiative. We just dropped a link for the roundtables and some of our upcoming events in the chat. Please feel free to check it out and let us know if you want to learn more. We have a busy schedule on the OTT.X calendar over the next couple of weeks, and that begins tomorrow, where we will return virtually with a special Women's History Month edition of OTT.X Buzz. Join moderator Charlene Polite-Corley from Nielsen and panelist Jen Chen, CRO of JWP Kinetics, Maria Hellstrom, CEO of CodeMill, Laura Martin, Managing Director for Needham & Company, Teresa Phillips, CEO of Spherix, and Paige Sherman, Director, Digital Video Programming for Shout Studios. A great cast for tomorrow's bus session. Finally, OTT.X will host a networking breakfast for its members at the NAB show on April 6th in Las Vegas. We have a tremendous program coming together, including some updates from our roundtable discussions, fresh industry insights from BB Media, and some exciting insights into AWS and their strategy with sports and live streaming. To learn more about OTT.X and our upcoming events, please feel free to visit us at OTTX.org. Colin, Hollie, and everybody that joined us here today, thank you so much once again. We hope you have a great day. Take care.